All right, Kezia Noble, you have been in this sort of the dating space for quite a while, haven't you?
2006.
You're old school, like an OG. You work exclusively with men. Is that correct?
That's correct. I think if I was helping women, it would be the blind leading the blind.
Why do you say that?
You know what? I've said that for many years. That's been my kind of catchphrase. But actually, now I've got a lot better with guys, a lot better. And I think that's a result of aging, not relying on my looks so heavily, having to rely on
Mm,
my charm and my mind games, which are sometimes more powerful than looks, which I discovered. And also just from helping like so many guys for like so long, I've kind of like, without realizing it, kind of learned that the game that guys use can be applied in some aspects to female game.
yeah, yeah. I think personally, I think that especially in today's day and age, where we kind of have to play these retarded games to some degree, like mind games and things. I think because of like the abundance of attention that the average woman gets through social media, I actually think that the guys who are really really successful, who would you might say have the gift of the gab, who are like incredibly charming, what some girls might call fuckboys, right?
Yeah.
These kind of men are actually the ones who are better at playing the female games than the women themselves.
I think women have got no game at all anymore
You
because
think?
it's women don't have a lot of game. No, oh,
Yeah,
women they play their little game, yeah, but it's so they're so fixated and heavily sort of relying on their looks, their Instagram, their online presence, rather than same with guys to a certain extent. But women, they just rely a lot on that kind of attention, this artificial attention I call it, from going on dating apps and
yeah,
things, Instagram. So when they meet a guy, they think, well, I just look pretty, that's fine. And it does. I mean, looks is a huge factor in it. Men are very, very obviously influenced by how a woman looks, of course. But there's a lot of good looking women. There's a lot of good looking women out there.
yeah,
So if a guy goes to a bar and there's 10 exceptionally beautiful women, well, he is going to go for the one who's got the game, essentially. But from what I can see, I think women, no, I don't think there's a lot of game going on there. I think older women do because they can't rely on their looks anymore. So
yeah,
I think, like, for instance, I get a lot of younger guys now, and I say, why do you like older women? We look like shit. And they're like, yeah, but you're sexy. It's a different thing to what younger women have. Younger women have the looks, older women have the sex appeal. And so imagine if a younger woman had that sex appeal with her. I mean, she'd be unstoppable. But I don't see it so much
You know
anymore.
what that sex appeal is, and I would agree. I will agree with what that guy said to you, and that older women can be a lot sexier than their younger counterparts, and it's simply like gratitude and enthusiasm. That's
Oh,
it. That's all that sex appeal is. That's the kind of trope of the cougar, the milf. You know, the reason why she's attractive, especially to like that younger guy, is because she's just enthusiastic, whereas the girl his age is so bombarded with attention that she doesn't really give as much of a shit. And she's kind of, and it creates this kind of snobby, condescending, I'm better than you, like attitude that gets projected, and guys pick up on that, and that's not sexy. It's yeah, it creates that I guess you might call like an air of arrogance to a degree. Whereas like the cougar milf kind of lady, she's happy to be there, and she's enthusiastic about the experience, and so that is inherently what creates that sex appeal, I think.
that's very interesting to hear it from that perspective. I know how it feels as a woman, being an older woman now compared to how I was, but that's very interesting to get the male perspective on that. I
Mm.
think also younger women are very much restricted by their friends, their influences around them, what's current, what is acceptable. And when you get to my age, you don't give a shit anymore. You don't, it's like you become much more sexually curious. You're not governed. You're not at the mercy of what would my friends think, what would society think. You do get to this point like, I don't care, done it, got children now, got it, okay, let's have some fun. Whereas
Yeah,
younger women, I always say to guys, if you want to date younger women, you're going to be dating all her friends, you're going to be dating all those stupid social influences that she follows, and her mum. You know, date her mum also. Enjoy.
Well, I wouldn't even say you're dating them as such. I'd say you're competing with them for influence over her, like influence in her life, right? Like her boyfriend comes along, he says, "Hey, babe, like he wants to go in a certain direction, and then all of society and her family and her friends are pulling her in a different direction. He's got to compete against that, and it's only really guys who have a lot of who can command a lot of influence from people at large, I think, that have a chance at kind of combating all these negative forces. Well, in some cases, they're very negative forces, I think.
They can be both. You know, a lot of times these girls around her and the mum has, you know, her best interests at heart. Sometimes it's for selfish reasons also that they're not aware of. It's interesting what you said, because I actually did a video about this, and I teach guys how to sort of get around this if they want to date younger women that are heavily influenced by their friends, is to actually validate their friends and their moms. So, you know what, you sound like you've got a group of friends that are just like so looking out for you. It's amazing. And your mom sounds like an incredible woman. What an amazing relationship you have. Because what happens is then also, whilst you're doing that, you've got to always be praising her for one thing, that she is somebody that can't be controlled. You know, tell her, you can't be controlled by other people. I can see that. You dance, you know, what's the saying, to the beat of your own drum? Is it something like that?
Yeah.
You're a force of, you say this kind of thing like, you're a very independent person. That's what I really like about you. So on one hand, you're reinforcing the fact that she's a free spirit. She doesn't, you know, she's not influenced by other people. You keep praising her, validating her for that. Same time, validate her family. So what happens is when the family start saying things about you, you know, this guy's this, we're not sure about him. She turns around and says, you know, he says amazing things about you. He says you're lovely. He thinks you're wonderful. So what happens is, you know, people are a sucker for flattery. So it's like, okay, he's saying nice things about us, but also kind of like it goes against what they're doing.
Yeah.
You've thrown
And
them
in a way, you've almost guilt tripped the family there. You've almost guilt tripped the mother or whatever. And you've installed that frame of she's independent.
Very important. Very important.
Of that whole influence. I love that.
Always validate, even if it's not there, you validate the quality that you want in the woman. So if you want her to be kind, say, you know what, I value kindness above everything. That's the most important thing to me. You say, you know, I noticed when you did that with this person, it was just so attractive. So even if she hasn't got it, I always think if you want to, I advise my clients, put the quality in there, install it, validate her on the quality she doesn't even have yet.
Oh yeah. You don't even have. She doesn't even have to be embodying that yet. Yeah. You can reinforce it. Like even if she doesn't do it, you can keep reinforcing a certain behavior, and then she will eventually adopt it because it's getting all this praise and attention for it.
Exactly.
You're a real manipulator.
Listen, it's chess. For me, game is chess, and it's all chess moves, and you have to detach yourself emotionally sometimes, because if you see two people playing chess, the one who's getting triggered, the one who's getting angry, he's the one who's going to lose. The one who's like, okay, you know, clear, not emotionally attached to the situation, they'll make good chess moves. And I know it's a bit reptilian. I completely am aware of it, but it works. It works.
I have no doubt you get results for your clients doing this. Okay, so for guys who are out there listening right now, what from your perspective as a woman, right? What is it that makes you want to keep seeing a guy? Let's say you've met a guy at a bar, you met him online or something like that. You've gone on like a first date, whatever. What is happening in that first kind of interaction, that first impression, that is causing you as a woman to want to keep seeing this guy and to really want to see him again?
So with women, it's very much how the man makes her feel rather than how he looks. With men, it's much more how the woman looks. You know, I always say if she's a beautiful woman, then that will eclipse most of her other defects. You know, with women, looks are important, of course, but it's how he makes her feel. And one thing that is very important, a lot of guys overlook, is you need to keep a woman second guessing. And you need to do this quite early on. So you have to have these layers to you. She has to keep rediscovering these layers. I always say predictability is the death of attraction. If she knows, right, he's going to do that next, he's going to say this, and for men too, they're like, oh God, she's going to react that way. I just know she's going to do this. It kind of gets a bit like, this is boring now. But with women, it's especially important. So a man has to not be second guessed. He can't be too predictable. So think about like how you're reacting to things, what your opinions are. Also, not just that, but be unavailable sometimes. So if she thinks, oh, yeah, he called me the other night when I asked him to call me, he's going to do it again tonight. Don't. Just little tiny alterations like that. Nothing crazy. You're not this like crazy person with split personality disorder or something like that. No Jacqueline Hyde stuff going on. It's just got to be like just little things where she's like, oh, I thought he was this person, but he's actually that person. Oh, no, actually, no. Oh, he's really hard to read. Women love men who are hard to read. They love it. Men like it to a certain degree. Oh, she's a bit mysterious. We can talk about that later, about the shadow side of people. But for women, it's very important. We like to sort of rediscover these things about the guy. And I get very small things, just like not being so available, just being a little bit unpredictable with, how you react to things and do things also.
He needs that element of mystery about him.
He does. And I just didn't want to say mystery because I find that it's very generic. And then, if I say to my clients, be that mysterious guy, they're like, okay, what is that?
Yeah. What does that specifically mean though? Yeah. Exactly the way you described it, right? Like unpredictable as answers, hard to get a hold of sometimes.
Hard to read.
Yeah.
People I think love that challenge.
That idea of like being hard to read as a guy, I think that comes down to being very stoic and she's unable to affect him emotionally. Because if a woman can like poke, like say something and she knows she's going to get an emotional reaction out of the guy, then that starts to lend to predictability, right? But if he's very stoic and unable to affect emotionally, she doesn't really know like what she can say that will actually influence his emotions at all. I think that lends.
Brilliant point. Yeah, I mean, look, being that, you use the word stoic, but being that sort of person who has, I call it like an abundance mindset. Like, if you give me shit, there's the door, I'm leaving. No hard feelings. I don't need you. I like you. I'm keen on you, but I don't need you. And I think that needs to be communicated, not verbally, obviously, but that needs to be communicated throughout. And if you want to call it stoic, yeah, it can be stoic. But that's something which, yes, is very important. But the whole thing about the layers, I've even used it as a line on men. Like I say, you know what, I can't read you, even though I can. I'll say to them, I can't read you. That's what I like about you. It's like, you're a mind fuck. I'll go to them. They love it. Guys love it. So, you can also use that on women a little bit, even if you can read them. It's another thing, like, I'm trying to work you out. So a lot of guys will say, I've worked you out. I know what you're like. I know exactly that. Doesn't always work, because then the woman sees it as a challenge and will be like, yeah, well, what am I like then? What am I like? Well, you're very, you're quite like, no, you got that wrong. And you might be right, but she's, you've challenged her now. You can't read me. I can't read you.
So she's going to, no matter what you say, she's going to disagree with you anyway.
On the whole, yeah, but you're a difficult one. I like it, though. I like it, And that's also a nice little segue for you to then start, again, going back to what we said, qualifying her on certain things. Because you can't work her out, so you're not presuming, are you?
What do you think about? So you talked about abundance mindset, and I think I agree with you there. It's super important for guys to adopt that.
So important.
However, it's a lot harder for some than others
to
adopt that abundance mindset, right?
Very hard.
So I'm curious if there's anything you tell your clients specifically on how to adopt that abundance mindset, because a lot of guys, I think the majority of the mistakes that guys make when it comes to women is they all come from a lack of abundance and a lack of options.
100%. It is the biggest problem, and women have it too. Women get needy. I'll give you an example. Like, if I like a guy, I fuck up. I'm like, oh God, I better return his phone call. He might go for someone else, or he'll think I'm not interested in him. And I know I have to wait. I I can't be too keen, right? But you can't help it because you start liking someone. That's the problem, and your game gets messed up. So I always say to guys, look, if you don't have the abundance mindset and you really like a girl, you have to exercise real self-control, and it's very, very hard. It's very hard. So, if I said to a guy who's not really interested in a woman, ignore her message, ignore her text message, write to her in a few days and say this. I'll be okay, fine, I'll do that. I don't really like her. And then guess what? It works. The girl responds well because he's following my advice. He's following the correct chess moves, the procedures. But then, he likes a girl. It's like, well, fuck Kezia's advice. She knows what she's talking about. I want this woman so much, and I know she's got all these other opportunities, and she won't. I'm gonna bite the bullet. I'm gonna call her. And you've got to. So for me, I always say to guys, you have got to. It's so hard. I know it's hard, but you've got to. It's fake abundance at the end of the day. It's a fake abundance. If you don't have abundance, if you really do not have all these women around you, you've got to fake it. You've got to fake it. And then what happens is if you start, again, doing the right moves, you'll start building up reference points. Now, that's key. You have to start somewhere. Some guys, they have some sort of reference points and you can use that to kind of like create an abundance mindset. But some people, they have no results at all. They have no experience. So, I can't feed them bullshit and say, yeah, you are this really desired man. Everyone wants you. Well, you've got to start from somewhere. Play the game. Start getting those reference points. To positive feedback loop. You'll start getting the reference points and the results, and guess what? You start feeling better, and you do start creating. Yeah, I'm actually quite a good-looking guy. Other guys, other girls want me, and so, like I said, positive feedback loop. But you have to fake it. You have to fake it.
Would you encourage men to pursue multiple options at the same time, and in order to adopt that, or do you advise guys to be more, I guess? I don't want to say monogamous because they're not in a relationship yet, but more committed to just like one lead at a time.
No, God no. Look, there's always context, right? If there's a particular woman that he really likes and things like that, and she's a good girl, there is a chance that this could be a really good relationship. Then yeah, of course, you want to focus on that. But no, in general, I say to guys, no, go out, talk to women, get the experience in, get rejected, get through that burn of rejection, that pain, that wall of pain. You come out the other side completely immune to it. And yeah, build as many reference points as you can, collect as many as you can. Definitely, if you put all your chips on one number, you just one woman. I don't, unless it's somebody that you think this is a serious relationship with, she's a good girl and you can see it going somewhere, then no, I wouldn't promote that.
I think that's a problem that I see a lot of guys making, is that because I did a poll recently on my YouTube channel, and I asked my audience, like, okay, well, what percentage of you have had sex in the last 6 to 12 months? And it was a staggering 45% of my audience hadn't had any kind of sex or sexual interaction in the last 6 to 12 months. And then I think it was something like 20% had one or two sexual interactions in that time. To me, that just says, my interpretation of that, my extrapolation of that, is that guys I think the average guy will probably only have in 6 months, he's probably only going to have one, maybe two women even remotely interested in him. And he puts all his eggs in that one basket, rather than trying to cultivate, rather than off the back of that minor success, trying to cultivate more leads and more potential. I think every guy who a lot of guys have had this experience where when they're in a relationship and they know they're in a committed relationship, whenever they're at a bar, they're getting all the looks and they're getting all the attention because of the way they interact with women, because of that carefree attitude they have. And then they break up with her. They think, oh yeah, we're gonna now it's like bachelor time, and they hit the club and no one's giving them any attention. It's gone from 0 to 100. Rather the other way around. And it's because of that complete lack of abundance once again. So
yeah,
it's an interesting insight.
Very true.
I like what you said a minute ago about you touched on what I would call being cold, being icy. And I think that's something men need to cultivate if they're going to have any chance of success with women. This idea of being immune to female emotions, immune, in particular, immune to things like tears, drama, uh, bickering, and nagging. Any of these tools that women can use to kind of poke at a guy and try to elicit some kind of an emotional reaction out of him. The colder he is, doesn't mean he's a bad man. It just means he's able to take that for what it is. Like, look at it logically, like you might have said, crocodile brain. Look at it from a purely logical perspective. Oh, okay. Well, why is she doing this? All right, she's freaking out. She's having a tantrum. She's having a bit of a cry about something. Maybe she saw me texting a girl, or maybe I talked to another girl or something. Now she's crying. Cool. I think that cultivating that ability to be ice cold as a man is super important, because otherwise, if you can be affected too easily by women's emotions, then she will just lose all respect for you.
Yeah. Are you talking about sort of within a relationship here, right?
I mean both. I think that general principle can apply both within a relationship and prior to relationship.
Right. Okay. That would go back to that abundance mindset, which is what I've noticed with guys, and I've noticed it since the pandemic. I've noticed.
I like that. Good.
You know what I mean? So since then, I've noticed guys have become a lot more scared of losing their partners. Seen it. It's very worrying. Men, they will do whatever it takes to make a relationship work, which was what the women used to do a bit more. But I've seen it flip over to the men. I'll give you an example of something. Oh God, I've got to be careful. They won't watch. No, they're happily married. They won't watch this. But it's like, I know a guy, and he made a lot of money on crypto. He's a good looking guy. He's not exceptional, but he's definitely, he keeps himself in shape. He's intelligent, wealthy, all this kind of stuff. And he's married like a blob. Like, she is so fat, this woman. No, he's not a guy with a fat fetish, which is cool. But, and one night we went to the house and we were all having a bit of a laugh, and someone made a joke and said, "Oh, who would you have liked to have lost your virginity to?" It was like this game. And then he's like, "Oh, Kezia," right? But listen, he didn't lose his virginity to that girl. So it's not like he's saying, "I'd like," right? You get what I'm saying? And she just stormed out. She was so angry. And he was like crying and going, "Everyone, get out the house now. I've got to sort this out." I was like, tell her to fuck off. Tell her, fix up. Don't behave like this, okay? You're paying the bloody bills for this house.
If he's making a bunch of money with crypto, hire her a hot female personal trainer. That's the solution there. If he gets her a hot female and make him work out in the house around him. So there's a hot blonde there all day, every day with a smoking ass training his missus. She better shape up quickly enough.
Listen, she's a nice girl. I feel bad. And if she was watching, I would never say if she was watching this, okay? She is a nice girl. She's a pretty face. But she's really, really fat. She's not like a bit chunky. Big woman, right? And but he's like absolutely petrified he's going to lose this woman. And I thought, okay, it's just him. But I'm noticing it with other guys. Can I give you another example here, or do we have time?
Keep going. This is great.
You know Joe Rogan, obviously.
Yes.
A guy went on his show. I don't know who it was. It was like his buddy, but I think he was like somebody, I don't know, he was a podcaster or something. I don't know his name. And they had on that time Mike Tyson, right? The legend, Mike Tyson. So Joe Rogan said, "Look, I brought my buddy here because he's like such a big fan of yours. Is that okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's cool." And they're all talking and it's like going really well. And this other guy's like, "I've got to go." I don't know if you remember this. And Joe Rogan's like, "What do you mean you've got to go?" He's like, "My wife needs me to do something." Are you serious? It's like, "Yeah, I can't. I thought, well, that's fucking rude to Mike Tyson. That is rude to do something like that. But despite that, what on earth did he have to do for his wife? Couldn't his wife said, "You know what? You're meeting your like hero. Fuck what I need to do today." Look, if it'd been like an operation or something, he wouldn't have been there in the first place, or he would have said at the beginning, "My wife's having an operation today. I've got to be there." If it was something major, it's like, "No, my wife needs me to do something for her today." Like, literally, imagine being to that point so henpecked that you would, in front of millions of people, leave a show where you're meeting your childhood kind of like idol because your wife needs you to do something. Imagine if a woman did that. Imagine if they say, "Oh, I got to go. My husband wants me to do something." Women would be like screaming, and quite rightly so. You know,
But I mean, I would say that I'd say that woman's a keeper. If a woman did that, I'd say she's a keeper. But men and women are very different. The guy doing it in that situation, I already know that woman doesn't respect him. She probably doesn't suck his dick. She probably gives him sex like once a month, once a fortnight max, and it's unenthusiastic missionary position with the lights off. Like I can when that disrespectful dynamic exists in a relationship, I already know the sex life is shit. I already know it's shit because it's just so predictable.
But why do guys stay with that? All I can think of is kids. All I can think of is kids. But I see at the run up to kids also, I see all the red flags before the kids come along and the guy's got a chance to get out of there. But they don't want to because men don't believe that they can get any better. They've been told this is your lot. This is the best you can get. I don't know where it's coming from. I don't know if it's from the media. I think a lot of it's parents putting pressure. I think a lot of people from certain cultures get a lot of pressure. Find a nice woman straight away, get married to her. And, they're so desperate to settle down that they won't look and say, right, hold on, there's a couple of things here that I'm not aware of. Women do the same thing. Women need to look at red flags and men also. But
funnily enough, the women who end up running into guys with guys that have red flags are typically I'm gonna hit on a stereotype, but typically like the fuckboy type of guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but the women who run into men with red flags, the men they're pursuing are guys with options, very very typically. Whereas the other way around, these guys are accepting a very very subpar situation because they don't believe that they can get anything better, or it's purely a case of laziness. They don't want to put the effort in to getting anything better because it's always work for dudes. It's work to get a woman. It's consistent. Like a beautiful woman can just sit around all day and she will get options thrown at her. That's just the nature of reality. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. That's how men and women are structured. But for men have to go out and actually pursue it and make it happen. And sometimes guys would rather focus on their career and making money and maintaining their health and their fitness, because the relationship sphere of their life is another area where they either can sit there on autopilot, like a lot of these guys are, and just put up with a shitty situation, or it means they have to double down and put a whole lot of focus and attention now on fixing this part of their life. And some people just don't want to sit there and do the work.
I think it's very true. I think you've made a really excellent point, and I think it's probably that combination of just not believing that they can get any better, and also some guys, to be honest, they want someone scheduling their bloody lives for them. They really do. They want to be controlled. I really believe it. Not all guys, but I think some guys like it. They like being told what to do. I don't know why. I couldn't think of anything worse than being told what to do personally, but I think some guys do. They like the fact that they have to answer back to Sergeant Major when they get home, that they have to, they kind of like the whole thing of saying, oh, my wife makes all the decisions. I've got to ask the wife first. I think they like it in a weird, bizarre way. I think they get off on it.
I think that whole, because that's like a caricature. That's like a trope, right? The happy wife, happy life, like, I better ask the missus. I gotta get home. I don't want to be in doghouse. I can picture the guy saying that because that's my dad's generation. Like that's that entire generation of men, and I think that's a psyop. I think they're all psyoped into accepting that reality, that version of reality, because none of them are fucking happy with it. None of them are happy with it. I know they're not happy with those situations. They just put up with it. And some of them put up with it.
No, you're probably right. I'm just saying it almost, you're probably right. But it does, I think some of them do like the control a little bit, to be controlled. I don't know why. I couldn't explain why. I
think it's the lack of, it releases some of the burden of responsibility they have as a man.
It's a byproduct almost. So they're not enjoying that. They're enjoying the fact that they don't have to think. And they can concentrate on other areas and let the woman sort of sort out everything for them. Yeah.
100%. I agree with that. 100%. It's the
I've been
relieves that burden.
I've been with guys where I've become like very controlling, and they take it. A lot of guys will take it. They will take it, and I don't even mean to. But if you give an inch, they'll take a mile. And the same with men. If you give men an inch in certain things, it's human nature. I'm not saying this is a woman thing or a man thing, but yeah, if a guy's like, okay, I'll go get you your this, I'll go get you that, this, that. Just promise me you'll have sex with me tonight. If I do all this kind of stuff, and yeah, the woman's going to keep pushing it and pushing it.
Yeah. And then the sex never comes. Because you can't make, like, this is the thing about, because women aren't really turned on as instantly as men can be, right? Men can be like flipped on like a light switch.
Yeah.
But for that very reason, you can't negotiate arousal. You can't negotiate sexual desire. It doesn't work that way. And men have, but again, there's another psyop that I think men have definitely been fed through TV shows, rom-coms, sitcoms, Disney movies, Hallmark movies, TV shows like Friends and stuff, that you can somehow barter and negotiate a woman's arousal like that. Like, oh, if I do XYZ things for her, then she will give me sex. It doesn't work that way. That's not how the female arousal system works at all. It's the complete opposite of that.
It's not rational. Attraction's not rational.
No.
You've got to tap into her emotional realm. You can't persuade, like, it'd be a good idea if we have sex, and I promise you, I'll give you an orgasm. Promise you. Really good.
It'd be a good idea. I love that.
Hear me out. Yeah, it's how a woman feels. Hopefully we can talk about the friend zone later. But for instance, as you said, women are not a switch. So a lot of guys think, I'll just put on the music and the lighting. It's like, no, that works on men. That works for men. Lighting, music, woman just gives them that look, that look. And it's like, yeah, boom, he's ready, okay? Women, no way. They need to have that whole, it's a process with women. It is a process, not a switch.
Yes. Okay, well, let's talk about the friend zone. Now you just mentioned it then. Mm-hmm. What do you think is the biggest reason that guys fall into the friend zone? So like the biggest mistake, you think that the most common mistake that they're making that leads them to it? And what do you think is the solution to avoid ending up there in the first place?
Literally, I could write a book about this. First of all, the friend zone is so toxic and so dangerous. Men have no idea how dangerous the friend zone is. And I have seen it destroy men. I've seen it destroy men and leave them emotionally scarred being in the friend zone. I will answer all your questions, but I just want to make this one point. The friend zone, what happens is when a guy gets into the friend zone, he thinks he's got a plan. He thinks he's got this plan, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And slowly, she's going to realize, she's attracted to me. She's going to realize it. Now, what happens during that time is the men start developing very strong emotions for the woman. Very strong. Most men who are in the friend zone, I don't mean the 2-week friend zone or the 3-week friend zone. I'm talking about the months. When it starts getting into months, it can very, very easily get into years because the man falls in love with the woman. Nearly every single guy who's in the friend zone is in love with that woman.
I'd agree with that.
This is what is so dangerous. There's always a part of them that never gets over it almost. Because they see her fucking other guys and stuff. It destroys them because it's not like, I just want to fuck this girl anymore. That was their original plan. I want to be with this woman. They start thinking. I've had guys who I've been in the friend zone with, and I've known, I'm like, this guy's falling in love with me. Because he's just spending so much time with me. He's spending so much time. And because the girl starts being herself very much around her friends, none of this bullshit anymore. He sees her authentic self almost. And that's quite attractive. In a way, it's quite attractive. It's her vulnerable self is coming out. She'll talk to him about her problems. She becomes this very sort of complicated person. And then he gets very invested in it. He gets very invested. It's so dangerous. So this is why I say to guys, you've got to avoid it at all costs. Unless you have a very strict game plan and you can implement and change the dynamics of that situation and implement the kind of relationship you want within 1 month, you get out of there. Don't do it. Because you will end up falling in love with her.
I'm curious, you said you've been in that situation as a woman who's had, that he's falling for you. He's in the friend zone. And I think secretly most women do realize that the guy friends that they have around them are in some way into them and falling for them. I mean, there's some women who are completely delusional
I'll
about
go
it.
into that. It's a bit more complicated than that. They
But
know, but they want to ignore it. So they
they
kind of
want to, yes, they want to ignore it. They choose to ignore it. Yes.
yes, but to the point where they've convinced themselves that it's not really
Yeah.
happening. Me, by the way, I do cut it short when I notice the things that they start doing where I don't like it anymore. They start
That
getting
was
very,
the
very
question I was going
jealous.
to ask. What do you do when you see that as a woman?
Cut them off.
You say, we're not friends anymore. I'm cutting you out of my life. It's
No,
done.
no, nothing like that. I become very unavailable, very distant. I'm very nice. I just say I'm very busy because I don't like it. They get very jealous. That is the
Mm,
big thing: is the jealousy. You think, oh, I'll talk about that date I went on, and oh my god, it comes out. Then the venom comes out, the venom, they're like, you feel like they're not happy for you anymore. They're not
right.
happy for you because the game's slipping away. The emotions are so heightened now that they can't hide it and go, oh, how was your date the other night, Kezia? Like before they could kind of hide it. In the end, it's like, who did you go out with? It's like the jealous boyfriend, but he's not your boyfriend.
It's this very passive aggressive energy.
It's horrible. So I'm very nice. I don't say, look, fuck off. I don't want to know who you are. I won't do that. I like people, and I don't want to hurt people's emotions or anything. I'm not like that. I might be a bit manipulative, but I don't. My agenda is not to hurt people. Really, it's not. It's not. I don't want to do that. That's definitely not my aim. Um, but yeah, I think men have got to be so aware of this because I have so many clients who are like, "There's this girl and she broke my heart," and I go, "Well, what happened?" They didn't even fuck. So you're in a friend zone. A friend zone situation broke your heart. You would not believe how many men. And then
Mm.
just they can't trust women. They end up not liking women. All sorts of things go over it. So you've got to be very have your game plan, and then avoid the friend zone at all costs. But if it's like, okay, I've got to sort of play along with this a little bit, you've got to be very strict with it and guard your emotions. Really guard your emotions.
I think you touched on something really, really useful there. Sorry to interrupt you, but you said that they get resentful and they get bitter in those scenarios. They get bitter and resentful towards women in general because they get their heart broken when they put themselves in the fucking friend zone, and it leads them down this dark rabbit hole of resentment towards all women. And I think that's men. Again, I go back to the psyop that I think most men have grown up with, where they've been taught that women are a certain way. I mean, look at how many movies and sitcoms have a scenario where the guy is clearly in the friend zone, and in the end, he somehow miraculously gets the girl. Men have all been brought up on this bullshit, and they've been force fed this. So to me, it's kind of no wonder that they think that this is somehow a winning strategy, and then they get bitter because they've been brought up thinking the world is a certain way, when in reality it is a completely different way. And so they get resentful at women. They think, you're supposed to behave this way. You're supposed to respond positively to me, being a friend, and then let me get in your pants at some point. That's how it was supposed to work. Why are you not behaving the way I expect you to behave? And then that's where that bitterness and resentment comes from.
Yeah, for sure. They look at it like I've been her agony uncle. I've been her emotional tampon for 1 year.
I love that phrase.
Where's it got me? Where's it got me? And they think, okay, I'm going to be just horrible to women now. I'm not going to open up. I'm going to be like this with women. And it's like, no. It's a balance. Again, I always talk about the shadow side. That's the most powerful game that you can operate from is using your shadow side in the correct way. You've got to be multi-layered. Bad guys have to show the vulnerable side. Good guys, I should say, not nice guys, have to show the bad boy kind of ruthless element. And you need that polarity. That's the polarity that really drives attraction for both men and women. So, but then they suddenly go, well, you know what? I'm just going to be an arsehole to women. That's what they like. Women like arseholes. Women don't like arseholes. That's not true. Women like the arsehole with the good heart, or they like, the good guy who's an arsehole deep down. It's polarity.
Yeah. That's a funny thing. Whenever a woman is dating a quote unquote arsehole, right? She will always say he's such a nice guy.
You don't know him like I know him.
Yeah,
you don't know him like I know him.
But that is because she has actually seen some of the vulnerable side to him at some point. She's seen something that creates, like you said, that polarity, that contrast. Whereas everybody else on the outside, the observer on the outside, doesn't see that part of him. So they're like, he's just 100% arsehole. Why is he ain't a nice guy? So that's why it creates that disconnect between like her and her experience of him, and then everybody else's experience of the same guy.
And it adds to the excitement. It's like, oh, our special relationship, it's very special. And
Yeah,
women are the same thing. So I'm a very extroverted, sort of, I look, guys look at me like, oh, she's going to be a headache, this woman. She, I know that, right? I'm very opinionated. I'm very direct. I have a lot of masculine qualities to me, or elements, I should say. I wouldn't say quality, but there's certain things, yeah. But I have a very fragile, vulnerable side also. And if I want a guy to like me, I'll let him see that part. And then suddenly his whole perception of me changes. Because if I'd been like this dominant woman in front of people, and then dominant in bed on top of it, and just very cut off from my emotions, I become one-dimensional. It's not attractive anymore. It's not attractive. They like a woman who's like quite like the guys who like that kind of alpha woman. They like her not because of the alpha woman. It's because of the shadow side of her when she's vulnerable, when she's with him, and she likes him to be the dominant guy in bed, which is what 90% of alpha women want, is they want to be dominated in bed. And again, it's that contrast that excites the man. And same with the shy girl. If you get like a quiet girl, you think, well, she's a bit boring, I'll be like, yeah, but she's a freak in the bed or something, or she's like got this other side to her. Again,
yeah,
it's the contrast.
100%. Yeah, I'm running through examples in my head, and that's exactly it. Like the shy kind of nerdy geeky girl on like in public, and then when you get in the bedroom, she wants to be tied up and have it put in her butt and like all kinds of crazy shit.
Or they're dominant.
That contrast is amazing.
The shy girls can be real freaks in bed, and they can be quite dominant also in bed. Whereas the alpha kind of woman who's got the career and stuff, she's going to want a bit of like.
They always like in the past, I've dated women who were like professional dominatrixes.
Oh wow!
And they were always, always, always wanting me to be the one in charge when it came to the bedroom. I'm the one tying her up. I'm the one administering the punishment.
Wow.
Always. And the same would also go for like any woman who I met or dated who was like high-powered CEO, ran her own business, was in a managerial position, was in charge in some way, shape, or form during her day-to-day life. When it came to the bedroom, she just wants to completely submit and switch off and lose all responsibility and just let go.
And be feminine. It's about being feminine again.
Being a feminine, yes.
Yeah. We don't want to be the man in bed. We've been the man all day at work, We don't want it. But there are some cases saying that. I mean, I like sexually adventurous people. I find them fascinating. I really like that. I don't like people who are too stuck in their ways sexually. So I'm sort of going through this phase now. I'm not going to give too much personal information, but it's like, if a guy says he likes something and it's like totally out of my jurisdiction, I'm now at this point where I'm like, you know what, let's see where this goes, kind of thing. And it's not always me being submissive, but on the whole, yes, definitely, as you said, the more alpha, the more dominant the woman is in her day-to-day life, much more likely she'll want to be in touch that kind of feminine, sort of more submissive kind of side to her character.
Yeah, I think it's you need it. It's part of it's just part of female nature. They need to have that to be able to access that feminine side to them. Because I mean, yeah, since the sexual revolution, we took women out of the household and put them into the workplace. We forced them into their masculine a lot more. A lot more. And so I think the natural consequence of that has been women wanting more dominant, passionate sex.
Yeah.
As a result.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna ask one more question. What is something that you think women in general wish that men knew about them? That they quite clearly don't know about them.
One thing. God, there's
that's one thing. You can give me a couple.
Okay. Yep. Here's one. I think this is something I wouldn't have said 10 years ago, but I feel like I am compelled to say now. Women are not attracted as much as guys think to success and looks. But hear me out. So success, it's not the success that's attractive. It is what's indicative of the success. So most men who are successful have incredible self-belief, quite passionate, they're powerful. Those are attractive. Those are attractive qualities. If you're successful, it's like a shortcut. She just says, okay, he's successful. He must have these other attributes. Often, though, he doesn't.
Yeah, some of
Successful
the time
guys
they don't.
Sorry?
Yeah,
Sorry?
I would agree. Yeah, like the success is a byproduct
Yes.
of all these attractive personality traits that the guy has in general. And they're like, I could probably describe an example for you. Like let's imagine a crypto geek, for want of a better like archetype, who hits a big crypto pump. And I'm not shitting on crypto guys. I'm a crypto guy as well. I've got plenty of friends who are crypto guys.
Then.
I'm not shitting on all these guys. I've got a whole lot of other stuff going on for me though behind all that, right?
Yeah.
But as an archetype in the last few recent years, okay, some kid who hits a crypto pump and now he's quote unquote successful because he's got a ton of cash in the bank, but he doesn't have any substance behind that. So that he's got the car and the fancy suits and the flat, and he's taken her out to the nice dinners and stuff. But when she gets there, what's all the things that she would assume are associated with that success are just missing.
So they're the trappings. I call them the trappings. They're there to lure the girls in, but it won't sustain her interest. It's you can look at a guy who's successful. Just you gave a great example of the crypto guy who suddenly made it. But there's also, what if the guy's just hardworking? Hardworking is something you respect. It's not attractive. Sorry, it's not. But let's be honest. Hard work is something that you would look at and say, I respect that. I really respect that. But it's not an attraction trigger. It's just not for women. Okay? What women are attracted to is confidence. And this sounds very, very cliche, but we have to, let's go back to the basics here. Women are attracted to men who have self-belief, who are confident, and who believe in themselves and their life trajectory. They really find that attractive.
Men who are, I think, successful risk takers is another good way of framing it.
You could say, yeah.
You have to think of all the guys who are kind of like who might be like a sexy stereotype or like a little bit edgy, a little bit asshole-ish, who are adventurous, unpredictable. Fundamentally, the common trait they all have is that they're risk takers, right? But the ideal is a risk taker who wins. So that's the successful risk taker. That's literally every successful entrepreneur on the planet. That's literally what they are, a successful risk taker. That's what athletes are. Athletes are all successful risk takers. They're the one who is going to take the shot when the clock's winding down to win the game. That's the definition of a successful risk taker. All these stereotypical archetypes of attractive, sexy men, I think they fundamentally all share that trait of being a successful risk taker, which lends into everything you just said as well then, like confidence, self-belief, all of these things tie into that as well.
I think you could also call it bold. I think a man who's bold is extremely attractive. So I'll give you an example. If I'm in a bar and I see a guy that I like the look of, and I've given them the hint, I've given them the eye contact, and he kind of is looking at me also. He's kind of interested, but he's not coming up to me. I'm not interested. I'm not interested anymore. He's not bold. It shows me that he lacks confidence.
That's a really practical example, and I love you brought that up. What is in your mind as a woman? What is like? How long does a guy have to make that move? Let's say you've like caught his attention. You guys have held like eye contact for a little bit across the bar. As a general feeling, how long does he have before he goes from being okay? He has potential to he's a pussy, basically.
Oh, that's a good one. Okay. I'm going to answer this honestly. If the guy is extremely good looking, he'll be given more chances. Not going to lie. If she thinks, wow, he's just so good looking, he's exactly my type. They'll be prepared for him to fuck up. Yeah, and men even more so with women, obviously. I think it's more about, okay, so let's say he looks at her, and it's what does he do in between that time of looking at her and approaching her? So if he's kind of like hovering, orbiting, and she knows, women always know that, by the way, when a guy's orbiting, that's an off-put, because that means I'm plucking up the courage. Not quite there yet. I'm almost there. Okay, I'm going to get there. That shows that he's too fragile and he's too insecure and he doesn't believe in himself, okay? And then there's a guy who's like, well, he's noticed me, but he's talking to his friend. He's in mid-conversation. He's going to finish that conversation and come to me. That's different, right? So there is context here. If he disappears for an hour, you don't see him. And then he, oh, hello, comes and sees you out of the blue. There's nothing wrong with that. You've got to hide that hovering, guys. Hide the hovering. Go hover in the bathroom for a bit.
I like that. That was a great answer. I like that, because that gives some solid context for guys listening around that. Because one of the things I kind of noticed, right? I had some friends growing up who were super handsome guys, super handsome, but they were stupidly shy with women. And what I noticed is that women will react way more harshly, reject a guy more harshly if he's actually a super good looking guy, but he has no game. He'll get rejected worse, and he'll get a more visceral negative reaction from a woman than if a guy is like average looking or like subpar in looks and he has no game. Because she expects him to have no game, but she expects the handsome guy to have some chat. She expects it from him. And so her expectations of him are just not matching the reality. And so she feels kind of, at least tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like she feels like she's been duped and tricked in some way.
Interesting point. I am a sucker for looks. I'm not going to lie. I am more of a sucker for looks than the average woman. But I have my point, where I say, right, cut off. You have no game. You're not making me feel sexy, or I'm not connecting with you for sure. But good looking guy. Yeah, I guess you feel let down. You think, oh God, I was expecting so much because you were this good looking guy, and I was just expecting you to have the chat and the banter. I think so. Yeah, that's a good point. Could be.
Interesting. All right. Look, where can everybody find you, Kezia? Like, what's the best resources? Like your YouTube, your website. What can they find? How can guys get more advice from you? Where can they get some more help?
Just go to the website, kezia-noble.com. There you can find out more about my programs that I run. I have a acceleration mentorship program, which is online. I have the 7-day mastery program. We do events in Las Vegas. I have my online digital products, and I have my best-selling book, The Noble Art of Seducing Women. I did not pick that name. My publisher picked that name because of my surname. It's a spin on words. I did not pick that one, but
nice.
It's a good book. It's still a good book. Bad title, good book.
That's not a terrible title. Stick with it. Go run with it. Well, look, Kezia, thank you so much for joining me. This has been a fantastic chat. We'll have to do it again sometime. It's rare for me to meet a woman who kind of gives relationship advice where I think she's actually giving genuinely honest advice. I think a lot of female dating coaches will kind of tell men, especially, what they want to hear.
Of course.
And then, yeah, unfortunately,
women are people pleasers, and most women's advice, I think, is pretty shit. It's generic, it's shit, and yeah, it just doesn't work. My stuff works anyway.
Excellent.